PLZ, take my puppy. She tried to leave her dog at his door. The rich cowboy whispered, "You stay too." It was a rainy evening in the small town of Willow Creek. The streets were quiet, except for the soft sound of raindrops falling on the roofs and the occasional splash of a car passing by. Leela pulled her jacket tighter around her, shivering in the cold and damp air. She had been walking for hours, though she did not have a particular destination in mind. Her mind was heavy with worry, a weight she had carried for months. Life had not been easy lately. Her job at the little grocery store barely paid enough to cover rent, and on most days, she barely had enough left to buy food for herself. Leela's family lived far away, and she did not have anyone else to turn to for help. Her world had slowly become a mixture of exhaustion, worry, and quiet sadness. In her arms, she held her small puppy, Milo. He was a tiny ball of fur, barely 6 months old, with golden eyes that always seemed full of trust and love. Milo was more than just a pet to Leela. He was her companion, her little source of joy, and the only being who could make her smile even on the worst days. Yet, as much as she loved him, she knew deep down that she could not take care of him the way he deserved. She had tried, but there were too many bills, too many responsibilities, and too little time. Milo deserved more than she could give. As she walked through the puddle-filled streets, Leela thought about what she would do. She knew it was selfish to even consider leaving him, but she could not see any other way. Her heart ached, and tears blurred her vision. She had passed by the outskirts of town countless times before, but tonight something felt different. At the far end of the main street stood the grand ranch house, its lights glowing warmly against the dark, rainy night. It was a huge house, unlike anything in Willow Creek. People often whispered about its owner, a man named Carter, a wealthy cowboy known for keeping to himself. Some said he was cold and unapproachable, but others told stories of how kind he could be, especially toward animals. Leela paused in front of the massive wooden doors of the ranch, her heart pounding. She had never met Carter, but something in her gut told her that he might be able to help Milo. She glanced down at the little puppy, who was shivering slightly in her arms. Milo looked up at her with trusting eyes, and she felt a sharp pang in her chest. How could she even think of leaving him? But the thought of him being safe and cared for was the only thing keeping her from breaking down entirely. She knocked gently on the door, hesitating as she heard the echo in the large, empty hallway behind it. No one answered. Her throat tightened. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper. With shaky hands, she scribbled a short note. "Please take my puppy. I cannot take care of him anymore. He is sweet and kind, and he deserves a better life than I can give. Leela." She folded the note carefully and tied it to Milo's collar, holding him close as she stepped back. The rain had soaked through her coat, and her hair stuck to her face. She whispered softly to Milo, "I'm so sorry, little one. I love you, but I want you to be happy." Milo whimpered softly, as if sensing her sadness but not fully understanding. Leela placed him gently on the porch of the ranch, her fingers lingering on his fur for one last moment. She stepped back and wiped the tears from her cheeks. Turning away, she felt a lump in her throat. Her mind was racing with doubts. What if he was angry? What if he didn't want the puppy? What if she had made a terrible mistake? But she could not bear to take him back with her. Her life was too unstable, too uncertain. She had to give him a chance at a better life, even if it meant letting go. Little did she know, Carter had been inside the house all along. He had been sitting by the window, reading a book and sipping his coffee when he noticed movement at the door. He saw a small figure standing there, holding something close. When Leela placed the puppy on the porch and left, he felt a flicker of curiosity. There was something about the way she moved, the way she looked at the puppy with such love and sadness, that caught his attention. He quietly followed her retreating figure from a distance, though he made sure not to be seen. Back on the porch, Carter gently picked up Milo. The puppy licked his hand, wagging his tiny tail. Carter smiled, a rare warmth crossing his usually serious face. He read the note, and as he did, he felt a mix of emotions. Compassion, yes, but also a quiet curiosity about the woman who had left the note. Someone had clearly loved this puppy deeply and yet felt unable to care for him. That kind of pain resonated with him, even though he had always lived a life of solitude. Carter sat by the fire that night, Milo curled up in his lap, thinking about Leela. Who was she? Why had she chosen to leave her puppy here? He knew he could not ignore this. The little puppy deserved care, yes, but perhaps the woman did too. Someone who loved so deeply, even when life was cruel, deserved help, kindness, and understanding. Meanwhile, Leela walked home in the rain, her shoes soaked and her clothes sticking to her skin. Her mind kept drifting back to Milo. She hoped he would be safe, that he would be happy. She hated herself for feeling a tiny flicker of hope that maybe he would be cared for. But as she trudged through the empty streets, she also felt the weight of her decision pressing down on her chest. She had made a choice, one that hurt more than she expected. That night, she lay on her small bed, staring at the ceiling. She could not sleep. Her thoughts were full of Milo's tiny paws, his wagging tail, his soft eyes. She imagined him curled up somewhere warm, safe, and loved. But she also imagined him looking at her, confused and sad. The images twisted in her heart, making her feel both relief and guilt at the same time. The next morning, the rain had stopped, but the streets were still damp, glistening under the early sunlight. Leela went about her day in a daze, her mind constantly drifting back to the ranch. She wondered if Carter had taken Milo in, if he was okay, and whether he would ever know how much she loved him. Across town, Carter prepared Milo's bed and food, speaking softly to the puppy as he moved around the ranch. He noticed Milo's little quirks, the way he tilted his head when confused, the tiny growls when he was scared, and the way his tail wagged uncontrollably when happy. Carter felt a strange attachment forming. He had always lived alone, always kept his distance from people, but there was something different about this puppy. Something that reminded him that care and love could be found in unexpected places. As the days passed, Carter found himself thinking more and more about the woman who had left Milo. He wondered what her life was like, why she had to give him up, and what challenges she faced. A part of him wanted to find her, to ask her about her story, and perhaps to offer help. It was unusual for him to feel this way. He was a man of few words, a man who trusted his own solitude, but something about Leela's act of love had reached him. Meanwhile, Leela continued her daily struggles, unaware of Milo's safety. She missed him terribly, thinking about him at every moment. Yet in her heart, she hoped that he was happier, even if it meant being away from her. She began to realize that sometimes love meant letting go. It was a painful lesson, but one she knew she had to learn. Carter, on the other hand, began to plan. He wanted to meet the woman who had shown such courage and love. He knew he could not simply take Milo and forget her. There was something about her, a resilience and gentleness that intrigued him. Perhaps, he thought, there was a chance not only to care for Milo, but also to help the woman who had cared for him so deeply. As night fell over Willow Creek again, both Leela and Carter found themselves thinking of each other, though they did not know it yet. Leela, lying in her small apartment, whispered Milo's name softly into the darkness. Carter, in the warmth of his grand ranch, watched Milo sleep and wondered about the person who had loved him enough to leave him behind. Their worlds were separate for now, yet fate was quietly beginning to weave them together. And so, with a rainy night, a little puppy, and two hearts unknowingly connected, the story of Leela, Milo, and Carter quietly began. A story of love, hope, and the unexpected ways life can bring people together when they least expect it. The morning sun rose over Willow Creek, casting a warm golden light across the quiet town. The streets were waking slowly, and the scent of wet earth from the previous night's rain lingered in the air. Carter was already up, moving through the large ranch with calm purpose. Milo, the small golden puppy, trotted behind him, tail wagging excitedly. Carter had prepared a cozy corner for him near the fireplace, complete with a soft blanket and a small bowl of food. The little puppy sniffed everything curiously, exploring his new surroundings with cautious excitement. Carter watched Milo, smiling quietly to himself. He had spent the night thinking about the small, trembling figure who had left this puppy on his doorstep. Her act of love and desperation had touched something deep inside him, a part of him he rarely let anyone see. She must have cared for Milo very much, he thought. To leave him behind had not been easy. There was a story there, and Carter felt compelled to find out more. After breakfast, Carter decided to take Milo outside for some exercise. The ranch was large, with open fields, tall trees, and a small creek running through the property. Milo ran in circles, barking happily, chasing his own tail, and occasionally looking back to make sure Carter was following. Seeing the puppy so joyful warmed Carter's heart. He knelt in the grass and called Milo over, gently stroking his soft fur. "You're a brave little one, aren't you?" Carter said softly, "and I think you've got a brave owner too." Milo barked as if agreeing, and Carter chuckled. He knew he could not stop thinking about the woman who had left him. She must be struggling, perhaps alone. Maybe she had no one to turn to. Carter had always lived by himself, surrounded by animals rather than people, but he realized now that sometimes people needed help just as much as animals did. He decided he would find her. Carter had lived in Willow Creek for years and knew almost everyone in town, at least by sight. He started asking quietly around the bakery where he remembered Leela often bought bread and pastries. The baker, a friendly middle-aged woman named Mrs. Harper, recognized Milo instantly. "Oh, that little one. I saw him being carried by a young woman last night. She seemed so worried, poor thing," she said. Carter asked about the woman, trying to sound casual. Mrs. Harper smiled knowingly. "You mean Leela? She lives just above the bakery in a small apartment. Sweet girl, but she's had a hard time lately. Works long hours and struggles to make ends meet." Carter thanked her and set out toward the apartment building. The small building was simple and worn, with a narrow staircase leading up to the apartments. He paused for a moment, unsure how to approach someone he had never met, someone who had just left a puppy at his doorstep. But determination pushed him forward. Milo, sensing his excitement, barked lightly and wagged his tail. At the top of the stairs, Carter knocked gently on Leela's door. He waited, but there was no answer. He knocked again, a little louder this time. Finally, the door opened slightly, and a tired, surprised face peered out. Leela's eyes widened as she recognized the man and Milo, who was now sitting calmly at Carter's side. "Hi," Carter said softly, keeping his voice gentle. "I think you left your puppy with me last night." Leela froze, unsure what to say. She had imagined Milo being cared for, but seeing him safe and happy in the arms of a stranger made her heart both swell with relief and ache with guilt. "Yes," she whispered. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't take care of him properly." Her voice cracked slightly as she looked down at Milo. Carter nodded, understanding in his eyes. "I can see how much you love him," he said. "He's lucky to have had someone like you. But I wanted to bring him back, if that's all right, and maybe talk to you a little." Leela blinked, unsure what to say. She had not expected him to come looking for her, and now that he was standing at her door, she felt nervous and exposed. Yet there was something in his calm, kind presence that made her trust him immediately. I don't know if I can. He needs more than I can give," she admitted. Carter smiled softly. "I understand, but maybe you don't have to make that choice alone. Milo doesn't have to leave, not yet if you don't want him to. Maybe you could come stay at the ranch for a little while, help me with him. Learn, rest, and figure things out. No pressure, just a chance to breathe." Leela's eyes widened. She had never expected such an offer. She felt nervous and unsure, but deep down, a small part of her longed for relief from the constant struggle of her daily life. Could she trust a man she had never met? Could she risk opening herself up after so many disappointments? She glanced at Milo, who tilted his head curiously, as if sensing her uncertainty. After a long pause, Leela nodded slowly. I think I could try just for a little while." Carter smiled, relief and warmth spreading through him. "That's all I ask," he said. "We'll take it one day at a time." The next day, Leela packed a small bag with her essentials and brought Milo to the ranch. Carter showed her to a small, cozy cabin on the property where she would stay. The cabin was simple but comfortable, with a warm fireplace, soft beds, and a view of the wide-open fields. Milo immediately ran around, exploring every corner, sniffing at the furniture, and occasionally running back to Leela for reassurance. Leela took a deep breath, feeling both nervous and hopeful. This was a new beginning, one she had not expected. She watched Milo playing in the sunlight streaming through the window and felt a tiny flicker of peace in her heart. Perhaps, just perhaps, things could get better. Over the next few days, Leela and Carter began to settle into a routine. Leela learned to feed the animals, take care of the horses, and tend to the small garden that surrounded the ranch. Carter showed her how to bathe Milo, play with him, and train him gently. The work was hard, but it was also grounding. Leela found herself smiling more often, feeling a sense of purpose she had not felt in months. Carter, meanwhile, observed Leela closely. He admired her patience with Milo, the way she spoke softly to the animals, and the quiet determination she showed even when tasks were difficult. He had always lived a life of solitude, and while he had plenty of money and land, he had never felt the warmth of companionship in quite this way. There was something about Leela that drew him in, something genuine and unpretentious. One evening, after a long day of work, Leela and Carter sat outside on the porch, watching the sunset. Milo lay between them, tired from a day of play. The sky was painted in shades of pink and orange, and the air was filled with the soft sounds of nature. "You've done really well these past few days," Carter said, breaking the comfortable silence. "Milo seems happier, and so do you." Leela smiled faintly, feeling a warmth in her chest. "I think I am," she admitted. "It's different here. I feel safer, I guess." "Like I can breathe again," Carter nodded. "Sometimes people just need a little space to recover, a place where they can feel safe and cared for. I think you've earned that." Their conversations grew longer and more personal over the following weeks. Leela shared stories about her childhood, her struggles, and her dreams. Carter listened patiently, rarely interrupting, but when he spoke, it was thoughtful and sincere. He, too, shared pieces of his past, how he had built the ranch, the losses he had endured, and the lessons he had learned about trust and solitude. Through it all, Milo remained a constant bridge between them. His playful antics often broke the tension in serious conversations, and his unwavering love reminded them both of the simple joys of life. Leela laughed more freely than she had in months, and Carter found himself opening up in ways he never thought possible. One afternoon, as Leela walked Milo across the fields, she realized how much she had changed. She felt stronger, more confident, and more hopeful. She had come to the ranch unsure and afraid, but now she felt like she belonged somewhere. Carter's quiet presence had become comforting, and Milo had given her a reason to wake up with a smile. Carter watched her from the porch, noticing the way she moved, the gentle way she spoke to Milo, and the spark in her eyes. He realized that offering her a place at the ranch had been one of the best decisions he had ever made, not just for Milo, but for both of them. And so, with each passing day, Leela, Milo, and Carter began to form a bond built on trust, care, and quiet understanding. Leela was still finding her footing in this new life, but she felt a glimmer of hope she had not felt in a long time. Carter, too, discovered that opening his heart, even just a little, could bring unexpected joy and connection. The story of Leela and Carter was just beginning, and Milo, with his playful energy and unconditional love, was at the center of it all. A small puppy who had unknowingly brought two lost hearts together and started a journey neither of them could have imagined. Life on the ranch quickly became a rhythm that Leela had never known before. Every morning she woke to the soft light of dawn spilling into the small cabin, the sounds of birds chirping, and Milo's tiny paws padding across the wooden floor. The little puppy would nuzzle her awake, his bright eyes full of excitement and love. Carter was usually already outside, working with the horses or tending to the land, and his quiet presence had started to feel comforting, a steady anchor in her otherwise chaotic life. At first, Leela struggled to adjust. The work was hard, feeding the animals, cleaning their stalls, and helping with chores that required strength she wasn't used to exerting. Her hands became calloused, and her muscles ached in ways she hadn't expected. But Milo's joyful enthusiasm was contagious. Watching him chase after butterflies or wrestle with a stray stick reminded her that life could be full of simple happiness. Slowly, she began to find joy in the work itself. She felt a sense of accomplishment she hadn't felt in a long time, and for the first time in months, she smiled freely without the weight of worry pressing down on her heart. Carter was patient with her, never rushing or criticizing. He showed her the proper ways to care for the horses, how to ride safely, and even taught her how to mend fences. Leela was clumsy at first, tripping over her own feet or getting tangled in ropes, but Carter's calm guidance made every mistake feel like a small lesson rather than a failure. He had a way of speaking that was gentle but firm, and she found herself learning quickly under his watchful eyes. One afternoon, Carter asked Leela to help him with a group of new animals that had just arrived at the ranch, a pair of goats and a shy little lamb. Leela had never worked with goats before, and she was nervous about approaching them. But Milo ran ahead, barking cheerfully, and Leela followed him, feeling her own courage grow. Carter showed her how to feed them, how to speak softly so they wouldn't be scared, and how to gently guide them into their new pen. As she worked, she noticed something she hadn't expected. Carter wasn't just teaching her about ranch work. He was showing her how to trust herself, how to take control of her life even in small ways, and how to feel proud of her accomplishments. She began to see that he had a quiet strength, a patience that came from years of experience, and a heart that was bigger than she could have imagined. Milo remained a constant companion throughout it all. He would chase after butterflies in the fields, bark at the horses playfully, or curl up in Leela's lap when she needed a moment of rest. Watching him thrive brought Leela an unexpected peace. For the first time in a long while, she felt that maybe she could have a life that was more than just survival. Maybe she could belong somewhere, and maybe she could even be happy. Evenings on the ranch became moments of quiet reflection. After the day's work, Leela and Carter would sit on the porch, watching the sun set over the wide, open fields. Milo would play nearby, chasing after fallen leaves or rolling in the grass, while the sky turned shades of pink, orange, and purple. During these moments, they began to talk, not just about chores or animals, but about life itself. Leela shared stories of her childhood, of the struggles she had faced, and of dreams she had put aside because life had been too hard. Carter listened without interruption, his presence calm and reassuring. Then, carefully, he began to share pieces of his own life, the losses he had experienced, the reasons he had chosen to live alone, and the way animals had always been a source of comfort and companionship for him. Neither spoke of past regrets with bitterness. Instead, they spoke with honesty and acceptance, allowing themselves to be vulnerable in a way they hadn't done with anyone else. As the weeks went by, their bond deepened. Leela began to trust Carter, not just as the man who had offered her a place on the ranch, but as someone who genuinely cared about her well-being. She noticed the small ways he looked out for her, leaving her a warm cup of coffee in the morning, checking that her gloves and boots were dry, and quietly watching over Milo when she needed a moment to herself. Carter, too, began to feel a shift in his own heart. Leela's kindness, determination, and gentle nature softened the walls he had built around himself over the years. He admired her courage, her patience with the animals, and the way she laughed even when she was tired. Slowly, he realized that caring for someone went beyond giving instructions or offering help. It meant understanding, trusting, and supporting them without conditions. One day, Leela noticed Milo digging in the garden, happily scattering dirt and petals everywhere. She laughed, exasperated but delighted, and Carter joined her, shaking his head at the puppy's antics. Together, they cleaned up the mess, joking and teasing each other lightly. The laughter felt easy and natural, and for a moment, all the worries of the world seemed to fade. Leela felt a warmth in her chest, a sense of belonging that was entirely new to her. Another day, Carter taught Leela to ride one of the horses. At first, she was nervous, gripping the reins tightly and feeling every bump in the uneven terrain. Milo ran alongside them, barking happily as if cheering her on. Carter stayed close, his hand lightly guiding her when needed and his voice calm and encouraging. "You're doing great," he said, and Leela felt a rush of pride. By the end of the ride, she was laughing, exhilarated by the wind on her face and the freedom of movement. Carter's eyes softened as he watched her, feeling an unfamiliar warmth in his chest, a deep appreciation for the woman who had entered his life so unexpectedly. Life on the ranch was not without challenges. One morning, a sudden storm rolled in, dark clouds covering the sky and heavy rain beginning to fall. The animals grew restless, and Carter and Leela worked quickly to ensure that everyone was safe and secure. Milo barked anxiously, sensing the tension in the air. Together, they moved the animals into shelter, tied down loose equipment, and checked fences for damage. The storm was intense, but working side by side, they managed to protect the ranch and each other. After the storm passed, they sat on the porch, dripping wet but exhausted, watching the sky clear and the sun peek through the clouds. Leela looked at Carter, realizing how much he had come to rely on his guidance, strength, and quiet reassurance. He looked at her in return, his expression soft, recognizing the courage and resilience she had shown. In that moment, there was an unspoken understanding between them, an acknowledgement of the bond that had formed through shared work, trust, and care. Milo, finally calm after the storm, curled up at their feet. His tiny body was warm against theirs, and his peaceful breathing reminded them of the simple joys that could be found even after challenges. Leela smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the little puppy who had brought them together, for the chance to experience connection and companionship, and for the unexpected hope that had entered her life. As days turned into weeks, Leela and Carter continued to grow closer. They shared meals, chores, and quiet moments in the evening. Leela discovered a sense of pride in her work and a joy in caring for the animals. Carter found himself looking forward to her presence, appreciating the laughter and light she brought to the ranch. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Carter handed Leela a cup of warm tea. They sat together in silence for a while, watching Milo chase fireflies in the fading light. Leela leaned back, feeling a sense of peace she had not known for a long time. "I never thought life could feel like this," she said softly, "like I belong somewhere." Carter smiled, a quiet warmth in his eyes. "You do belong here," he said. "And not just with the animals, but here with me. We've both found something we didn't expect, a place, a companion, and maybe even hope." Leela looked at him, feeling a mix of gratitude and something deeper she couldn't quite name. Milo barked happily, breaking the moment, and both laughed. The sound was light and freeing, echoing across the fields, a symbol of the bond they had formed and the life they were building together. In the weeks that followed, Leela became an integral part of the ranch. She learned not only how to care for the animals, but also how to take care of herself. She discovered that strength came not just from enduring hardships, but from allowing oneself to trust, to love, and to accept help. Carter, too, discovered that opening his heart, even slowly, could bring joy and connection he had never anticipated. And through it all, Milo remained the constant thread, the little puppy who had unknowingly brought two lonely hearts together, teaching them that love could be found in unexpected places, that trust could build bridges between souls, and that sometimes life's most beautiful moments came when least expected. The ranch had become more than a home. It had become a place of healing, growth, and quiet love. Leela and Carter had found in each other a companionship neither had sought but both desperately needed. And Milo, with his playful energy and unconditional affection, had been the spark that made it all possible. The early morning sun painted the sky in soft shades of pink and gold, and the ranch was quiet except for the gentle rustle of leaves and the soft chirping of birds. Leela woke with a sense of calm she had never felt before. Life at the ranch had grown into a comforting rhythm, and every day brought new lessons, laughter, and moments of connection. Milo was already awake, bounding around the cabin with boundless energy, nudging her with his wet nose until she stretched and got out of bed. Carter was already outside, tending to the horses. The steady sounds of the animals and the wind through the trees created a peaceful morning soundtrack. Leela watched him from the doorway for a moment, feeling a warmth in her chest. Over the weeks, she had come to understand the quiet strength that lay behind his calm demeanor, and she had learned to appreciate the way he noticed even the smallest details, whether it was Milo's habits, the needs of the animals, or the way the garden required careful tending. She felt a sense of belonging here, not just with the animals, but with Carter as well. After breakfast, Carter asked Leela to help with a task that required teamwork, moving hay bales to the storage barn. The storm from the previous week had damaged part of the barn, and they needed to prepare supplies for the coming months. Milo ran ahead, barking happily, his small tail wagging furiously as he jumped in the fresh morning light. Leela smiled, feeling a lightness in her chest. The work was hard, but it was satisfying. Each bale they moved together, each step they took across the fields, strengthened not only the ranch but also the bond that had quietly grown between them. While lifting one particularly heavy bale, Leela felt Carter's hand steady her. "Careful," he said softly, concern flickering in his eyes. She glanced up and saw the quiet intensity of his gaze, and in that moment she felt something she had never expected, an unspoken trust and understanding. She nodded, taking a deep breath, and continued. Carter's presence made her feel strong in ways she hadn't realized she needed. The day passed in a blur of work, laughter, and small victories. Milo chased butterflies, barked at birds, and occasionally ran between Leela and Carter as if ensuring they were both okay. The sight of the little puppy thriving reminded Leela that the decisions she had made, leaving Milo at the ranch and trusting Carter, were the right ones. She had feared loss, but instead she had found connection, safety, and a growing sense of purpose. As the sun began to set, clouds forming in the distance signaled another coming storm. Carter and Leela worked quickly, securing the animals and checking fences. Milo barked anxiously, sensing the tension in the air. The wind picked up and the sky darkened rapidly. Lightning flashed across the horizon, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Together, they guided the animals into the barns, tying down loose equipment and ensuring that everyone was safe. The storm grew fierce, the rain lashing against the rooftops and the wind howled through the trees. Despite the chaos, they worked as a team, their movements synchronized from weeks of shared effort. Each glance they exchanged carried reassurance, each command and response built on the trust they had formed. Milo huddled between them at moments, seeking comfort, and they offered it freely without hesitation. When the storm finally passed, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a rainbow over the wide-open fields. Leela and Carter stepped outside, dripping wet but exhilarated. Milo bounded ahead, barking happily, as if celebrating their success. Leela looked at Carter, gratitude and admiration filling her heart. "We did it," she said, laughing softly. Carter smiled, his eyes reflecting the rainbow above them. "We did," he agreed. "And we did it together." There was a quiet intensity in his gaze, a depth of feeling that Leela had begun to recognize but had not yet fully named. For a long moment, they simply stood there, taking in the rainbow, the calm after the storm, and the sense of accomplishment that came from facing challenges side by side. That evening, they gathered inside the cabin, warming themselves by the fire. Milo curled up on Leela's lap, content and peaceful. Leela sipped her tea, feeling the warmth seep through her, and Carter watched her quietly, noticing the way she had grown confident and strong over the past weeks. She had faced fear, worked hard, and embraced new experiences, and he admired her for it deeply. Over the next few days, life at the ranch continued with its comforting rhythm. Leela and Carter shared meals, tended to the animals, and worked together in the fields. They also shared quiet moments, watching the sunset, sitting by the creek, and laughing over Milo's antics. Through these experiences, their bond deepened. Leela found herself opening her heart to Carter in ways she had not imagined possible. She trusted him, relied on him, and even felt the beginnings of affection she had not expected to feel. Carter, in turn, began to realize that he no longer wanted Leela to leave. Her presence had brought a lightness to his life, a warmth that he had not known in years. He admired her resilience, her kindness, and the way she cared for Milo and the other animals. He understood that his feelings were growing stronger, but he wanted to ensure that Leela felt safe and comfortable before revealing the depth of his emotions. One afternoon, as they walked Milo through the fields, Leela spoke softly about her hopes for the future. "I never imagined life could feel like this," she said. "Like I belong somewhere, like I'm part of something bigger than myself." Carter listened quietly, appreciating her honesty and vulnerability. "You do belong here," he said gently. "With Milo, with the ranch, and with me if you want." His words were careful, thoughtful, and sincere. Leela felt her heart flutter at the sound of them. She had come to the ranch seeking a safe place for Milo, but she had found so much more, a sense of home, connection, and perhaps even love. As the sun set, painting the sky in warm colors, they watched Milo play in the tall grass, his joyful energy a reminder of the happiness they had all found. Leela smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace and gratitude. She realized that sometimes life's most beautiful moments came unexpectedly, through challenges, risks, and acts of love. Leaving Milo at the ranch had been a difficult decision, but it had led her to a place where she felt safe, valued, and loved. In the weeks that followed, Leela and Carter's relationship continued to grow. They shared responsibilities, laughter, and quiet conversations late into the evening. They celebrated small victories together, the growth of plants in the garden, Milo learning a new trick, a successful day of work on the ranch. Each moment strengthened their bond, building a foundation of trust, respect, and affection. Milo, of course, remained the heart of their lives. His playful antics brought laughter and joy, while his unwavering love reminded them both of the power of connection and care. He had become the bridge that had brought Leela and Carter together, and his presence continued to strengthen the love and trust between them. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat together on the porch, watching the stars emerge in the night sky. Milo slept peacefully at their feet, exhausted from play and adventure. Leela leaned back against the railing, feeling a sense of belonging that she had never experienced before. "I never thought life could feel like this," she said softly. "So full of hope, peace, and happiness." Carter reached out, taking her hand gently. "Sometimes life surprises us," he said. "It brings people and moments together in ways we never expect. You and Milo, you've changed my life, and I hope I've done the same for you." Leela felt a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that she had found more than safety and comfort at the ranch. She had found love, trust, and a place where she truly belonged. Carter's quiet strength, kindness, and understanding had given her the space to heal, grow, and open her heart again. As they sat together, hand in hand, watching the night sky, Leela knew that this was the beginning of a new chapter in her life. A chapter filled with hope, love, and the promise of shared adventures. She had come to the ranch seeking a safe place for her little puppy, but she had found so much more: a home, a partner, and a future filled with possibilities. Milo stirred slightly, nudging her hand with his nose. Leela smiled down at him, feeling a surge of love and gratitude. "We're all together now," she whispered. "And it feels right," Carter nodded, squeezing her hand gently, and together they watched the stars twinkle above the wide-open fields. Life at the ranch had transformed them all. Leela had discovered her own strength, resilience, and capacity for love. Carter had learned that opening his heart could bring joy, connection, and a sense of belonging he had long thought impossible. And Milo, the little puppy who had brought them together, continued to fill their lives with laughter, warmth, and unconditional love. In that quiet, peaceful moment, with the world stretching endlessly around them, they all knew that they had found something rare and precious. They had found each other, and in doing so they had discovered that love, trust, and hope could flourish even in the most unexpected places. And so, under the stars and with the soft sounds of the night surrounding them, Leela, Carter, and Milo embraced their new beginning. The future was uncertain, as it always is, but for the first time they faced it together, full of hope, love, and the promise of a life built on trust, care, and the unexpected magic that comes from opening one's heart.